On the heels of that conversation, here comes our next story. Jamaicans falling out of love with the JLP and PNP, according to Anderson. Story courtesy of Nationwide Radio JM.com. Pollster Don Anderson says the Jamaican electorate is fast falling out of love with both major political parties. The poll was commissioned to, among other things, gauge perception about the PNP's standing relative to the governing JLP.
It's not been a consistent pattern, When you look at the voter turnout, and there's data that I have that speaks to a growing level of apathy in the political process, it is startling. And I think what it says is there is a turnoff amongst the electorate, and I would not be surprised, but that when the next general election is called, unless there's some kind of impetus, some kind of injection, some kind of change, or factors that would change the person's perception of the political process and the particular parties, then we could expect a low on a same kind of turnout as we saw in the 2020 election, where there's 38% turnout to vote. We know it was a COVID situation, but the fact is that that was a continuation of a significant decline in the participation of voters at the polls.
The poll findings make for troubling reading for both Prime Minister Andrew Holness and opposition leader Mark Golding. They show that favorability ratings for both men have nosedived. Golding's negative performance rating was at 49% this year, up from 39% last year. The Prime Minister's negative performance rating is at 44% compared to 27% last July. Mr. Anderson says the polls show that both parties are bleeding support across demographics.
Amongst the People's National Party, they're not attracting the young voters to the extent that they would like. They're also seem to be losing some of the older support because people are falling off the voting platform, so to speak. And for the Jamaica Labour Party, again, whilst they're attracting more of the younger voters than the People's National Party, there is a certain disenchantment amongst the young persons, so that the pace at which young people come on board in the political process is very slow. And therefore, these are the challenges that they face. They have to find ways and means that they can reach out to the respective voters in the various demographic cohorts and absolutely, therefore, target with specific messages. You can't have a broad brush approach. You have to find out what it is, who it is that is actually tailing off, why they're tailing off, and how, therefore, you can address that kind of fall off in the ratings that they're now receiving.
That was Don Anderson, the pollster. What are the leaders going to do with this information? The numbers are in. The feedback is in. How are they going to pivot? And we're not talking about pivoting so you can campaign and just talk. We're talking about pivoting so that you can make effective change. People want to have, and I believe people have hope and faith in their country. But people don't want to just dream or think or talk. They want to see action. They want to see change. They want to be able to say, yes, I feel good. I work. I'm able to buy a house. And the truth is not everybody dreams of having a mansion, but everybody don't really want a mansion. People just want a decent house to live in. They want to know that the street that they have to walk on to get home is well lit. They want to know that there's no garbage piled up under a street light for days. They want to feel safe as they go about their day-to-day existence. The truth is, at the core, people are simple. But our minds start wandering because we're so burdened by the stresses, and then we start dreaming of bigger things and bigger things and bigger things. And then it becomes daunting for us. Go right ahead, James.
Yeah, so you know what I'm going to take from that poll? I'm going to take the positive. That poll is showing me that the future of Jamaica is in good hands. That poll is telling me that, back in the days when I was growing up, when, my dog a PMP, my cat a PMP, like everything that me had a PMP, that no longer stands, right? And like that, the young minds that are growing up in Jamaica now that they can make a decision based on what is happening. Like, okay, like if me see a hospital go up and it went up under this government, I'm going to support this government because of that. Not because, my dog a JLP or me cat a PNP or whatever. And that is a good sign because that shows that young people they're thinking for themselves now. This whole tribal politics, this like gang member politics where like if your mother a PNP, you have to be PNP. If your father a JLP, that is almost extinct. So that's a good sign for the future of Jamaica.
Right. PNP needs to do more to effectively market Golding.
I am accepting that we would have liked to see a greater increase in the numbers for the leader of the opposition. That's without question. I'm not going to come here and pretend as if, we're resting on our laurels and we're satisfied. There is work to do. And I thought I just explained that, it's still a blank canvas and that we need to do more to market him so that people can understand who he is and what he stands for.
General Secretary of the People's National Party, Dr. Dayton Campbell, says the party needs to do more effectively to market party president Mark Golding to the Jamaica people. He was reacting to the 10 percentage point increase in Golding's negative performance rating, as shown in polls conducted for the PNP by Don Anderson in February this year. Meanwhile, Dr. Campbell was asked why the latest poll findings should not result in a call for Mark Golding's resignation. It was Dr. Campbell himself who led the call for the resignation of former PNP President Dr. Peter Phillips in the wake of similarly weak poll numbers.
Who the leader of the party is at any one time. It is important, it is good if you have a good relationship with that person, if you like that person. But as it is with a member of parliament in a constituency that I reside in, I am voting based on the policies of the PNP. It is good if I like the MP, but even if I don't, I would still be voting for the political party. So if the party is competitive, you're talking about a campaign during a time where the party itself was lagging behind in polls, and therefore a campaign was launched.
Dr. Campbell says PNP supporters will have reason to feel optimistic when the party standings from the same Don Anderson survey are published. Yep. We have work to do in Jamaica. We have a lot of work to do. And not just when it's time for vote. But we have some good news. Delta Airlines to increase weekly flights to St. James. So that's not too bad, right? Top U.S. airline Delta is expensive, though, has increased the number of weekly flights between Boston, Massachusetts and Montego Bay, St. James. That's according to senior advisor and strategist in the Ministry of Tourism, Delano Seavright.
It's a major boost for destination Jamaica. We're talking about 4 flights per week by Delta Airlines between Boston and Montego Bay. Boston is a major hub in the Northeast United States and really serves a fairly well-off market also. So the convenience of travelers from Boston and surrounding areas in New England to travel to Jamaica has increased substantially, and as such we expect to get more traffic and more folks out of that specific section of the United States.
The news follows the announcement by another U.S. carrier, Frontier, of 9 more weekly non-stop flights to Jamaica. The flights will arrive from Denver, Chicago, and St. Louis. Seavright says the additional airlift is proof of Jamaica's robust visitor arrival numbers.
Our tourism numbers have been doing very well so far. We'll continue to pace ahead of, certainly 65% above where we were last year in terms of tourism, in terms of tourist arrivals, stopover arrivals. And compared to 2019, we're about 2-4% ahead of where we were in 2019, which is the last good year really before COVID. So Jamaica is essentially continuing to break records.
Delano Seavright, senior advisor and strategist in the Ministry of Tourism. Brand Jamaica is global, folks. It is. And you're absolutely right, Kalisha. We need to get the crime under control. Somehow, the crime is a deterrent for us Jamaicans in the diaspora, but not for others, it seems. Everybody else wants to go. Everybody else feels safe. So why is it then that us in the diaspora are very hesitant? We love our country to death, but we're hesitant.
Oh, because tourists are not generally targets.
So,
They're generally not targeted by
hold on, Donald. Hold on. Sorry. Go ahead, Kalisha.
tourists are generally not targeted by criminals. You'll hear a one-off situation, but largely when people see in Jamaica, people see tourists, they see money. And they'll probably find a way to increase the price and charge you more than you should be charged. But largely, no, tourists are not targets. But when you, and remember, moments, a lot of the returning residents, but most times when they're killed, they're always usually killed by a family member. Or close friend. It's usually somebody they know. It's not random attacks.
Right.
So it's totally different. And then also remember that our tourism structure in Jamaica is the all-inclusive model. So you pay one money, you come and you stay at the pool. A lot of them don't even go out in the streets. Like in Barbados or other parts of the Caribbean, you see tourists in the street interacting with the people. You don't necessarily get that as much because oftentimes when they take them out of the hotels too, it's guided tours. It's not just them wandering around and doing whatever they want. So it makes it less likely for them to even be targets of criminal activities because they usually have a guy there with them. But returning residents, it's a different ballgame. Different.
So, Kalisha, you're there. You're on the ground. What would your recommendation be to the government as it relates to making those who are in the diaspora, returning residents, feel safe?
Moment, the truth is, I don't think there's no way the government can secure one particular section. Crime is crippling Jamaica across the board. I mean, even this past week and a half, I was looking at my friend and I was saying, is it that there's a targeted approach in killing business people because about 3 or 4 got killed over the last couple of days?
Yes, I noticed.
Yeah, it's like, what is happening? So it's listen, I don't know how, but a crime in Jamaica, the very politicians are sometimes in bed with these criminals. They know who the criminals are. The justice system, as an officer of the court, and the justice system in Jamaica, it lacks so much. It's the time it takes, the legislation, the one the other day with the anti-gang one, they charge them.
The Klansman gang, that one?
Yeah, they're dropping out like flies one by one because some of them weren't charged under the right section of the law. And it's just a mess. It's just a mess across the board. I don't know. Jamaica want all upside down like a pants and shake out. Wow. I really don't. Crime. And to fix crime in Jamaica is going to take a very, very hard approach. And then when it happens, I promise you this moment, any government who does it will fall out of favor with the people. Both political parties want to be favorable because they want to stay in power. And so even if one go in, suffer the consequence, the second party will not continue because they too will be seen as the bad guy. And not only that, any tough measure that is put in place, the very same people sometimes in the diaspora who, in my opinion, is oftentimes far removed from the physical life. Mm-hmm. I've heard them even on this Clubhouse platform, they're, oh my God, and the government is wicked to poor people. And it's like, what do you want? Because nobody has ever fixed a system by patting people on the shoulder. You know what I mean? And then you're going to have it's people because the human rights people only worry about certain sectors. And trust me, even though I'm here talking, I understand the intricacies of it. I know. But sometimes when you see them, how these particular sectors behave, you're like, what do you really want for Jamaica? You want it to, or you're just pushing your own agenda? You know what I mean? There's no way. We're going to have to be rough. It's going to have to be rough, and some people are going to have to give up a little bit of rights here and there, and then it's going to require both sides. It's going to have to be bipartisan. It has to be both sides must sign on to it. It cannot be a PNP or a JLP thing. It will have to be a Jamaica thing, and I don't see it happening because Jamaica is a heavily tribalistic country.
And we need to move away from that mentality, Kalisha. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Donald.
No, I was going to make the same point Kalisha made. The model of tourism is mostly all-inclusive, so a lot of these tourists pay, they go into a hotel, everything is planned for them. They do not really interact with the the locals on an extensive basis. And though that might be good for the numbers of visitors and so on, what you find is the trickle-down effect is sort of non-existent in some way. So the tourist is not going out there and supporting the local vendors, the local taxi, interacting with the people. So there is less money circulating. And if the owners of these hotels and so is expatriation the money, essentially what they do, you make the money, then you take the money out of the country. So besides some of the employment and your numbers and so on, the impact is less than if it's a case where, as you said, in Barbados or those places where tourists would be move around and interact with the community and so on and spend more money on the ground. So that is why I was saying the numbers could be high, but the locals don't really want to go back because...
All right. Thank you, Donald. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I heard the noise in the background. Sorry.
No, I'm done.
Okay. Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Kalisha. Joyce said in the chat, everybody does not feel safe. They are told not to go outside their hotel. So that's why they still go and feel safe. I have met a lot of non-Jamaicans and they question going to Jamaica and choose other destinations based on what they hear about crime in Jamaica. We have lost a lot of tourists due to crime. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your comment. I got to do one more story and then take a quick break and keep it moving. James, 30 seconds. Go.
Yeah, no, what I was going to say is that there's a solution that was brought forth years ago about creating a North Coast corridor, like from where Fern Gully right there, where it would be like its own municipality. But the tourism, the hotel industry, the hotel association shut it down because that plan was supposed to, from Ocho Rios to Runaway Bay, Montego Bay, Negril, like that would be like its own sector, its own section, and they would make the area safer and like for tourists like to leave out of their hotels and stuff. So the hotel association didn't want that. So this is a result of that.